Hello, my name is Patrick Lavrits, and I am a lecturer at the West University of Timisoara, the Faculty of Economics and Business Administration. And I want to speak about proxemics in advertising, namely in Romanian and German advertising. And let me start with the presentation. Just a moment. Okay, so the topic is, as I've told before, proxemics in Romanian and German advertising. So modern as well as more traditional societies, they face the same basic problems. But however, the answers and the reactions to these problems differ, and how the different cultures solve these problems. And this view was particularly widespread in the first half of the 20th century by anthropologists like Ruth Benedict or Margaret Mead. And then later on, after the Second World War, these differences were tried to be explained by ethnologists like Edward T. Hall, or in the 70s and 80s, like by social scientists like Gerd Hofstede, and then later by in the 90s by von Strompenaars, who developed the so-called cultural dimensions. And of course, proxemics is linked to Edward T. Hall, yes, and he's also the ethnologist that is regarded as the founder of intercultural communication. He is an American. Yes, he was born in Missouri in 1914, and he grew up in the American Southwest. In the early 30s, when he was a young man, he worked as a foreman on Native American Navajo and Hopi reservations, and in this way, he had the opportunity to encounter different culture. So this brought him into contact with culturally different ways of thinking, of acting, of living your life. Then another opportunity to meet different cultures or foreign cultures, yes, was during the Second World War. Yes, he fought as an officer, yes, in Europe and in the Pacific Ocean in the Philippines. Yes, he was an officer during World War II. So he also had the opportunity to meet other cultures. So these war experiences in foreign cultures brought him to his research subject. The differences in the way of thinking and acting had so impressed him that he examined the grouping of cultures, and he continuously published articles and text on the field of research. But the difference to Gerd Hofstede or von Strompenaars is that he dedicated one book to every so-called cultural dimension, to all of these tools, yes, that help us solve intercultural problems. So he gradually developed them and described them in different books. And also difference to Hofstede and Strompenaars is that Edward T. Hall does not explicitly describe these categories as cultural dimensions. So he never called them cultural dimensions. Yes, he avoids precise categorizations, yes, of the countries. So he examines only a few cultures, but describes them in a more detailed manner. Over the years, he devoted himself to the research direction, especially with regard to international business relations. And together with his wife, Mildred Hall, he studied various sources as newspaper articles or business structures or institutions, and so on, and conducted also numerous interviews with managers, but also with artists, writers, teachers. And all this research has resulted in practical guides for dealing with business partners from the different cultures. Yes, like the book Understanding Cultural Differences between Americans, Japanese, Germans. As, so he was the first to coin this expression intercultural communication in his book, The Silent Language. He recognized that in addition to language, Also, other culture-specific areas play an important role that are not initially consciously perceived. And so it's a silent language. It's like later Hofstede would describe or would say that culture is the software of the mind. So he compares, Hofstede compares the culture to the software of the mind, to the programming of the mind, the collective programming of the mind. But this idea also appears in the book The Silent Language of Edward T. Hall. And so he identifies three cultural dimensions. He has high or low context communication, or proxemics, or the spatial orientation, and chronemics as the time orientation. And later, he added also information speed as a fourth dimension. So I want to tell some words about proxemics, the attitude towards space. So he was also the one who coined this term. Yes, besides intercultural communication, Edward T. Hall also coined proxemics. Yes, he was the first to research this behavior. And so he founded a study and the importance of space for communication. Because there is a different relationship to space in different culture, Hall distinguishes, makes a difference between the proxemics in the different cultures. So it's not only about our inner structure or about our psychological structure. We are introverts or extroverts, but proxemic also deals a lot with culture. And he developed this dimension, or this cultural dimension, in a book that is also called The Hidden Dimension, where he presents the attitude to space and describes the different spatial distances that people allow or try to protect, depending on the culture that they were brought up in. So he differentiates between the intimate, the personal, the social, and the public distances. And he describes in the book also the differences regarding the different culture that the members of the culture maintain to each other when meeting or when having a social interaction. Yeah, so these can change with increasing familiarity between people, but also culture influences the different extents of these distances. So these distances are like bubbles that surround us, and of course they are dependent on our psychological structure, but also to the cultural background that we were brought up in. Okay, a few words about the first distance, the intimate distance from skin contact to 45 centimeters represents the narrowest space that surrounds a person. And this space is only for very close members of our family, like spouses, partners, children, yes, or very close friends. Yes, intrusion at this distance is only accepted by closest friends and family members. You can feel the warmth of the skin, the smell and the breeze of the other. So the view is also slightly distorted. So it can be when you dance, like a dance posture. This conveys closeness, warmth, and security in intimate closeness. Yes, but when it comes to strangers, they are perceived as unpleasant, as they are intruding your intimate distance. The next distance is the personal distance from 45 centimeters, so half a meter to 1 meter and 20 centimeters, 120 centimeters. And it is what Hall describes a small protective sphere or bubble that the person maintains between him or herself and others. This distance is usually always maintained, and it is considered the normal distance in conversations with friends, with colleagues, so with people that you have a regular relationship with, that you meet quite regularly. He will lose the sense of body heat and all the most powerful odors. Eyesight begins to focus and vocalization comes into play. Where a person stands within this range shows the closeness of the relationship. So we can see the closeness or the distance of colleagues or friends within a group of friends. For instance, at the cocktail party or at the office party, how close or distance these friends or colleagues stand to each other. And the third distance, yes, is the social distance, and it is reserved for social interactions with clients, customers, with acquaintances, with neighbors, with plumbers or carpenters, so people that we meet randomly or that we do not have regular contact with authorities or superiors in negotiations. Usually it is also the distance is separated by desk or by other pieces of furniture. We now have to rely solely on what we can see and hear, and by the middle of range, the eye can focus on the entire face. Okay, so it is reserved only for impersonal transactions. So this is the distance, the zone of impersonal transaction with people that you meet randomly. And the public distance from 3.5 centimeters, yes, on to hundreds of meters is the furthest distance. In it, interactions are perceived as impersonal and anonymous. The distance exists, for example, between actors and the audience, or between the professor and the students, or between a priest and his congregation, or a politician and his voters. So the eye can take the whole body now at a glance. It is not a problem. And how much space each distance takes up is, like I also said before, culturally determined. Now, if someone who needs a relatively large amount of personal space around him is talking to someone who likes to get close to others, the former will feel as cramped or as his space is being invaded, and he will take a step back. Whereupon the other person will find this distance also uncomfortable as too distant and will come a step closer. And this is like a dance, for instance, in a corridor, during a conference break, for instance. Yes, following Edward T. Hall, Morris and Hallett found that there are three distinct distances for Europe. So first of all, there is the elbow distance. So you could grab the other by the elbow. So you stand quite near to each other. It is preferred in cultures that communicate with high context, such as Italy, Spain, France, Greece, or Turkey. Then the second distance is the wrist distance. So you could touch the other person's wrist. So this is commonly found in Eastern European cultures in Europe, yes. And the fingertip distance, fingers touch the arm when it is outstretched. This includes Germany, the Netherlands, Great Britain, so the Anglo-Saxon cultures and the Scandinavian cultures. So here a distance of at arm's length applies in communication because you do not want to touch the other person. The Swedes, the Scots are known to have a particularly wide distance. Of course, in Latin cultures, the relative distances are smaller, and in Nordic cultures, the opposite is true. Okay, so territory is what holds the places and things that people consider personal property because they either own them or use them. So people who see their office as their own territory tend to close the door. This is especially the case in the German culture where people need their private sphere. While in other cultures it is taken for granted that the office doors are open and entry is therefore permitted. For instance, at the American universities, there is an open door policy in dealing with students at certain hours. So cultural differences exist in which spaces in private life are considered their own territory. Arabic cultures, yes, in the Arabic cultures, guests are received only in a dedicated room and the rest of the home is considered a private space. Arabs also differ significantly from Europeans because they require a very small physical distance. That it is not impolite to breathe in the other space. For For Arabs, personality resides within the body, so touching another body is not offensive. The Arabs do not like to be alone. They want to feel the other person with all their senses. There is an Arabic proverb that says a paradise without people should not be entered, for it is hell. So behavior in private space can, of course, be different than in a public space. Okay, and now I want to give some examples from Romanian and German advertising. So some products are used more privately, for instance, toothpaste or paste or deodorants, but other more in public, like drinks or luxury, some luxury articles. So next to culture, public or private use affects advertising appeals across countries. So in general, advertising in individualistic culture appeals more to individualistic values, such as self-reliance and personal rewards. And in individualistic cultures, the members of these cultures also need a wider distances. Whereas advertising in collectivistic cultures would need a narrow place, who are used to smaller bubbles around them. Here they tend to appeal more to values like family well-being, in-group goals, or interdependence. So the differences are larger for products that are shared and used in public than for personal products that are more used in private. So the type of product advertised moderates the cultural differences. Individualistic or cultures, or cultures that need wide space, are yes, they are characterized by a large spatial distance, and the distances are getting bigger, and physical contact is rare or is also completely absent in such individualistic cultures. So it can happen that actors are often shown alone in large rooms in German advertisement, or that in German advertisement only one actor, one character is shown. And I want to show you an example, yes, of a print ad for the Mercedes company. And here we have the comparison to prove the different spatial distances between Germany and Romania. As here on this slide, you can see the Romanian ad for the Mercedes company, the Mercedes Sprinter model. And as you can easily see in the picture, it is depicted as Noah's Ark. So domestic animals and wild animals have gathered on the mountain, yes, and are lined up waiting to be seated in this car wagon before the storm begins. The headline in this ad indicates that this would not be a problem, as without a doubt, everything will fit in. The subtitle, which again mentions the brand of the car, says that the car is prepared for every situation, as all animals, large, small, will find space in this, find their place in the smallest space that a car can offer. And I have also a second example of the same advertising campaign. Yes, and it contains the same elements of campaign, yes, but the eye catcher consists of two. In the first picture, you can see the Sphinx in the Bucegi Mountains, and the second image shows the Mercedes Sprinter model in the same mountain landscape, but the difference is that the Sphinx has now disappeared. It is implied, yes, that yes, this huge rock is now in the interior of the car, as that it is in the spacious inside of the car. Here too, attention is drawn to the spaciousness of the car, which can be used to transport many people or many things. And now in contrast, I want to show you the German ads, yes, for the same Mercedes company. Yes, it's another advertising campaign that was used now in Germany. And of course, you can easily perceive the wider interiors of the and the space that people have at their disposal. So the wider interiors of a car is by no means filled by this tiny driver. So the driver seems to be in an oversized car. He feels comfortable. Of course, the idea is to feel comfortable as in a living room, but also he needs all this space for himself. So this is usually in individualistic, large distant cultures. In no case does he seem lost, but he can relax in peace. like in his own house. The bed in the truck driver's cabin has the dimensions of a large bedroom bed, or the tray serves as a comfortable kitchen table, and the passenger seat plays the role of a comfortable sofa. All these three ads are part of the same campaign. During long journeys, he feels just as comfortable as in his own four walls. The oversized space is not filled. One merely presents an actor who can use this large room for himself and enjoy the private atmosphere and undisturbed existence. While in collectivist, small distance cultures, members like to share things, yes, because they have to share also the small distances. In individualistic cultures, members keep things for themselves. Yes, and you can see this obviously for an advertisement for an ice cream, or the Magnum ice cream that uses this approach, yes, of an individualistic culture, a culture where white spaces, white bubbles are not uncommon. As in the advertisement for this ice cream symbolically expresses the individualism of the Germans, me and my Magnum. Yes, everything must be unique, individual. There is only one character, yes, shown in this ad. The I is pronounced, it comes first. It is no longer enough just to eat an ice cream. It must also be an extraordinary experience. The fact that the ice cream is a mass-produced industrial product is concealed in advertising. So it has to be unique. It's not something mass-produced. The first thing you notice is the catch visual, an image of an attractive, confident woman holding an ice cream cone. As the image is dominated by the warm red-brown tones, and the dark-haired woman is shown, and generally by a whole image is she's also in brown tones. In contrast, to the warm tones is the repellent hand or arm movement and the cool facial expression of the woman. The woman's look suggests a modern, a self-confident character, but she doesn't look directly into the camera, as she seems to be looking for something in her own environment with a critical and sensual expression. The viewer feels the headline, "I share a lot, but not everything," addressed directly. The first part, "I share a lot," conveys a very communal and social message. And in the second part, "but not everything," the clear contrast is presented. This is an appeal, but the "but" catches the viewer's attention, and he asks himself what prompted the woman's behavior. With the text placed at her face level, the viewer concludes that she is making the statement herself. As a modern and independent woman, she is willing to share a lot, but she wants to keep this pleasure to herself. As the aid is aimed less to the need for nutrition, but rather alludes to enjoyment. So she doesn't have to share it with her family or anyone else. Yes, she is allowed to be selfish. Yes, egoism is desired and is rated positively in this case. So the picture is not intended to address a social group, a collective, yes, to people who are gathered, yes, within a distance, but rather the individual who wants to enjoy and act individually. The advertisement for John Player, yes, also expresses this, probably somehow different. Yes, the slogan and the picture shows a single black dress among other white items of clothing, and this also underlines this individualistic way of thinking. On the other hand, yes, the ad for the Romanian soft drink, Justo, which uses the slogan "for harmony in the family," is a good example of the values of a collectivist society, a society that doesn't need very wide spaces and distances, where the social distances are not that large. And the commercial starts with a family driving to a holiday home to visit the daughter's boyfriend's parents. Both the car and the elegant dress style of the slightly older parents and the classical music that they listen to in the car indicate an exquisite lifestyle. They arrive at the big gate, they ring at the door, and the door is opened by an unconventionally looking middle-aged man who greets them with great joy. As it turns out, the friend's family does not spend their vacation in a holiday villa, but they live in a mobile home, in a van, yes, in an RV, in a recreation van. The friend's mother receives the guest in the same nonconformist style of dress and with the same enthusiastic manner as her husband. When everyone is seated at the table, the elderly couple feels harassed and a little bit uncomfortable. The boy's father euphorically asks if the children have already set a date for the wedding. As oppressive looks are exchanged among the guests, the mood is getting more and more gloomy and burdensome. Finally, the girl's mother manages to answer, "I think that we shouldn't rush and give them time to get to know each other better." But this is followed by the boy's father's reply, "They've already met." And this is followed also by the wife's announcement of the good news. "We are going to have a grandchild." The parents look at their daughter with reproachful looks and finally reach for the 2 glasses with the soft drinks, and they are drinking, and the slogan for harmony in the family can be heard in the background. So this domestic product is presented on the basis of collectivist values. So the daughter does not say much, yes, and she does not comment on the events. She does not contradict her parents and almost always feels oppressed. The same goes also for the son, despite the nonconformist upbringing that he certainly received from his parents. So the parents are not contradicted, and the decisions seem to be made by the parents' couples alone. Also, the elevated status, an expression of collectivism paired with high power distance, so significant in collectivist society, appears throughout the commercial. The expensive car, the fine suits, the classical music they listen to, the hope to spend a pleasant afternoon in a vacation villa, the awkward mood also shows the need for a certain status as an expression of a high power distance. The boy's parents also demonstrate the hospitality typical of a collectivist culture by their warm welcome and proximity to their daughter's future in-laws. The joyful announcement, "We will have a grandchild," already indicates that the whole family is taking care of the baby as soon as it is in this world. So obligations to the family in a collectivist society are not only financial, but also ritual. And of course, the child is then integrated into this in-group, protected by it, and then later on, it is required also a certain loyalty to this group. There is also a lot of non-verbal communication in the commercial, especially between the elderly couple who keep exchanging meaningful and reproachful looks, which also points to a collectivist society where there is much more non-verbal communication. So she is belonging to a culture with a strong contextual reference. The characters finally appear as a united family, as an extended family, in which harmony and balance are the desired values. The extended family gathered in the swimming pool, and it has also significantly reduced the distance, the great distance that is usual for individualism. And so we can see them here in the at the bottom right end of this slide. Yes, sitting in the swimming pool at a very close distance to each other. In a collectivist, narrow distance society, people dislike being alone or eating and drinking alone, while in individualistic, large distance cultures, people value and protect their privacy much more. In individualistic cultures, members can enjoy a beer alone and also relax alone. But this is not the case in collectivist cultures, where people drink beer together among friends. So commercials and ads on the German beer brand, Warsteiner or Diebels or Jever, and the Romanian beer brand, Bucegi or Silva, illustrates this difference in distances and in individualism and collectivism. In the ad for Warsteiner, for the Warsteiner beer brand, you can only ever see a single man or a single woman enjoying their beer in thought. So the slogan also emphasizes the individualistic traits, the one and only, König Pilsner. As in the advertisements, performances, success, achievement, and relaxation of the individual are significant. The ad for the German beer brand Jever also expresses these white spaces, individualism, and the white space is typical for individualism. The Parisian landscape is shown and a lonely man walking along the coast. The deserted scenery exudes calm and security. The man wanders through the dunes, enjoys life, just lets himself go. The protagonist himself is a businessman who expresses autonomy. His stubble, beard, coat, and suit is self-confidently easygoing. Also, the lighthouse, Westerheverzand, which stands out in the flat landscape, symbolizes this individuality and vast spaces. The man can relax alone on the beach, let go, as he calls it, and this is a symbol of total relaxation. So you can enjoy your beer alone, yes, and let go. This is a good day for him, exactly my day, exactly my beer, like the country, like Jever, Frisian, Herb. So this commercial is an expression of the wide spaces of individualism in which people spend their time alone, live alone, and enjoy their everyday successes individually. In contrast, Romanian beer ads emphasize friendship, togetherness, teamwork, family appeals, and close distances. Always beer is enjoyed together with friends. In collectivist cultures, beer ads always shows groups of friends working together or enjoying leisure time together. The catchwords here are trust or fun, yes, that you have together with other people. Another commercial is that of the beer brand Silva, the spirit of Transylvania. So the spirit means tradition, harmony, and here in the different scenes we can see the community who is pulling ropes to build different castles. So they join forces, they can contribute to the construction of all these castles from the Middle Ages or the clock tower in Timisoara, all famous tourist attractions of Transylvania. So the community can only do this together as a close community. The community is stressed in these beer commercials. The last example, the Romanian ad for the Skol beer brand, also expresses the high power distance and close, very close distances, yes, in professional life, and also the diffuse culture typical to a society with close distances. So the ad begins in an open plan office where the employees work at their desks, and the boss, the supervisor, is always seen behind his employee, shaking his head. Yes, the head shaking boss appears behind the employee. He sits in his chair at his desk and shows him how to do his job properly. So he obviously invades his personal space and also so his intimate space. Also, after work hours, the employee goes to the gym in his free time to lift weights, but here too his supervisor appears to give him some useful pieces of advice. In the third scene, the employee has an appointment with his girlfriend at the restaurant for dinner. During an intimate and romantic moment, the supervisor reappears to take his place and show him how to do it properly. He intrudes the space of his employee constantly. Finally, the final scene takes place late at night in a dance club, and this time the young man is dancing with his girlfriend. Again, the boss interrupts him, who relieves him of the dancing. Only the beer lets him forget the hardships and stress of the working day, and only then can he completely switch off and draw a line between work and professional life, despite the insistent and stubborn boss, who constantly intrudes his personal distance. So in summary, it can be said that there are no generally applicable rules for the design of an ad. Rather, a multitude of factors would have to be taken into account in order to successfully advertise a particular product. In addition to cultural peculiarities, product-specific factors and transnational target groups must be taken into account. The attitude towards space can can be recognized by the way the ads are carried out, the interactions between the characters and the type of people portrayed, as well as the way in which the message is conveyed, transmitted, and the way in which the target group is influenced and reached in the different cultures. So I want to thank you, and this was my presentations, yes, about the proxemics in Romanian and German advertising.